She didn't beg. She didn't speak. She just drew, on cold sidewalks with broken chalk and a heart full of pain. But when a billionaire saw the face she drew, he froze, because it was his daughter, his dead daughter. He followed her, not out of pity, but out of something deeper, something he didn't understand yet. What he discovered next would rewrite both their lives and prove that sometimes the most forgotten people carry the greatest gifts. Welcome to Hearts and Billions, where the rich meet the broken, and one moment changes everything. Love, loss, redemption, all in one story. Subscribe to feel every heartbeat. Please kindly take me to 1,000 subscribers. The city was loud, fast, and cold. People walked by in a hurry, never looking down, never noticing the girl sitting quietly on the sidewalk. Her name was Jane, but no one knew that. To them, she was just another homeless teen, dressed in an oversized hoodie, jeans with holes, and sneakers with worn-out soles. But every morning, just as the sun started to warm the streets, Jane opened her small backpack, took out a bundle of colored chalk and began to draw. She didn't ask for help. She didn't hold a sign. She just drew. Today, her fingers moved slowly over the concrete. The shape of a face started to appear, gentle eyes, a soft smile, hair blowing in the wind. Within minutes, a crowd had formed around her. They didn't speak to her, but they whispered to each other. How does she draw like that? She's better than most artists I know. But as always, once the light turned green or their break ended, they walked away. A few dropped coins in the small tin can beside her. She never looked up. She just nodded and kept drawing. The city didn't know her name, but the concrete did, because every day she gave it a new face, a new soul, a new story. And across the street, inside a black SUV, a man in a dark suit sat watching her. He came every morning, parked at the same spot, never got out. His eyes were always fixed on her hand and the portrait she was drawing. Today, his hands trembled slightly as he leaned forward. Because the face she was drawing, it wasn't random. It was his daughter, the one he buried 3 years ago. And for the first time in months, he whispered to himself, how does she know? He had more money than he could ever spend. He had houses on every continent, cars he never drove, and a business empire that made headlines every week. But Mr. Carrington didn't feel rich, not since he lost her. His daughter Lila had been everything, sweet, wild, curious, until one rainy night a speeding truck stole her from the world and from him. Since then, he'd become a ghost. He still went to meetings, still signed contracts, but inside, empty. Most mornings, his driver took the long route to the office. Mr. Carrington never explained why. But today he finally spoke. Slow down. Stop here, he said softly, pointing to the square. His eyes locked on the sidewalk, on Jane, the girl with chalk-stained fingers. She was drawing again, focused, calm, like the world didn't exist around her. And then he saw the face. It wasn't just a drawing. It was Lila, the same eyes, same smile, even the small birthmark on her cheek. His breath caught in his throat. How? He leaned closer to the window, trying to see better. It wasn't a copy of a photo. It wasn't traced. It was alive, full of feeling. It looked like someone who knew Lila had drawn it, not a stranger. He didn't know the girl's name, didn't know where she slept at night. But he knew one thing. He had to find out who she was, because in that moment, something stirred in him. Hope? Curiosity? Or maybe the beginning of something he never expected. Mr. Carrington didn't speak much after that day, but every morning, like clockwork, his black SUV returned to the same corner. The driver never questioned it. He sat in the back seat, always quiet, always watching her. Jane came just after sunrise, like she always did. She never noticed the SUV, or if she did, she never looked up. She would kneel on the cold pavement, take out her chalks, and begin. Some days she drew faces. Some days it was broken families, crying mothers, or little kids holding teddy bears. Her art spoke for her. Mr. Carrington started noticing details. She was thin, too thin for a girl her age. Some days she limped like her foot hurt. Her hoodie was the same every day, faded with one torn pocket. She never asked for help, never spoke to strangers, and yet people always paused to stare. One morning, Carrington told his assistant, "Find out who she is." The assistant returned the next day shaking his head. "No one knows her name. No shelter has her, no school, no ID. It's like she doesn't exist." That only made Carrington more curious. Who was this girl? How did she draw his daughter so perfectly? He couldn't stop watching. At night, when he tried to sleep, her drawings haunted him. Not in a bad way, in a way that made him feel something again. But he didn't get out of the car. Not yet. Because even billionaires can be afraid. Afraid of the truth. Afraid of feeling again. Afraid that this mysterious girl might be more than just a street artist. She might be a message, a sign, or a second chance. The clouds rolled in without warning. One minute, the morning sun warmed the pavement. The next, the sky turned gray and the wind picked up. Mr. Carrington sat in the SUV, eyes on Jane as always. She was almost finished with a new drawing. A mother holding a baby, both smiling but with tears in their eyes. Then the first drop of rain fell. Jane looked up, blinked and sighed. Not again. She rushed to cover the drawing with her thin hoodie, spreading it gently over the face she'd just finished. But it was too late. The colors began to blur. Pink turned to brown. Blue melted into gray. The sidewalk became a river of chalk and sadness. Mr. Carrington reached for the door handle. His driver spoke up nervous. "Sir, you'll get soaked." But Carrington didn't answer. His hand paused, hovering. He saw her kneeling, arms over the drawing, getting drenched. Her hair was stuck to her face. Her fingers still clenched a piece of wet yellow chalk. She wasn't trying to save herself. She was trying to save her art. Something in his chest pulled hard, like grief and guilt tangled together. He opened the door just a crack. The rain blew in, but before he could step out, she looked up. Their eyes met, just for a second. Her eyes were wide, startled. Then, in one swift motion, she grabbed her backpack, scooped up her wet hoodie, and ran. Carrington stepped out into the rain, calling, "Wait!" But she was already gone, her footsteps splashing into the alleyway. He stood there soaked in the middle of the square, alone. Behind him, the chalk drawing washed away completely, leaving only a faded outline, a ghost of a story that almost stayed. And for the first time in years, Mr. Carrington felt like the one being left behind. The next morning, the sidewalk was quiet. Puddles shimmered in the early light. Yesterday's drawing was gone, washed away like it never existed. But Mr. Carrington was already there, earlier than usual, waiting. No chalk, no girl, only cold concrete. He sat in the SUV, staring at the empty spot, wondering if she'd ever come back. He hated that feeling of waiting. Billionaires didn't wait, but today he did. Then he had an idea. He reached into the seat beside him and picked up something folded and soft. A long, heavy coat, dark blue wool, lined with warmth. One of his favorites. Without a word, he stepped out of the SUV. He walked to the edge of the sidewalk and placed the coat gently beside the little tin can where she usually collected coins. Tucked into the collar was a small white note. "You matter." That's all it said. No name, no offer, no pressure, just truth. Then he got back in the car, rolled down the window slightly and waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Then she appeared, hood up, eyes low, steps cautious. She saw the coat first. She froze. Her eyes scanned the street like she was expecting a trap. Then she looked straight at the SUV. She couldn't see inside. The windows were dark, but someone was watching, and she knew. Slowly she walked forward. Her fingers touched the coat. She read the note. Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't speak. She didn't smile. She picked up the coat and pressed it to her chest like a shield, then walked away, head down. Carrington didn't follow. He just sat there breathing. On the building across from them, a small, barely visible security camera blinked. It had caught everything, and when Carrington got back to his office, he asked his team one simple thing. Keep the footage. All of it. Days passed. Jane didn't return to the same spot. Mr. Carrington still came every morning, hoping, watching, waiting. But the sidewalk stayed empty. No chalk, no tin can. No girl. He felt something strange. Not anger, not frustration, worry. He asked his team again. "Find her." "I don't care how long it takes. I need to know who she is." That's when a name came up. An old woman, Mrs. Evelyn, a retired art teacher who volunteered at a youth shelter. Once a week, recognized Jane's drawing style from the security footage. They called her in. When Carrington showed her the sketch, she covered her mouth. "That's her. That's Jane." He leaned forward. "Who is she?" And slowly the story came out. Jane had been abandoned at 12. Her mother dropped her off at a train station and never came back. Her father was never in the picture. No relatives, no phone, no records. She'd spent years floating between shelters, foster homes, and eventually the streets. Quiet, distant, but always drawing. "She didn't speak for almost a year," Mrs. Evelyn said, tears in her eyes. "But when we gave her colored pencils, she spoke through those." Carrington sat in silence, his throat tight. He imagined her as a child, alone in the world, sleeping under benches, carrying chalk instead of toys, not asking for help, just surviving. "She's gifted," Evelyn said softly, "but she doesn't trust anyone. Not anymore." Carrington looked out the window. His own daughter had grown up in mansions. She had ballet teachers, birthday parties, a bedroom with stars painted on the ceiling. And yet this girl who had nothing had drawn Lila better than anyone ever had. He turned to Evelyn. Where would she go now? Evelyn hesitated. "There's one old shelter she still visits sometimes. Not to sleep, just to leave drawings for the little kids. She leaves them on the walls like gifts." Carrington stood. "Take me there." The shelter was small, quiet, and hidden between two tall buildings. It smelled like old blankets and boiled rice. The walls were covered in crayon suns and chalk flowers. Carrington walked in slowly, his footsteps soft against the tiled floor. Children peeked at him from behind doors, some curious, some afraid. He didn't blame them. Men in suits usually brought bad news, not hope. Then he saw it. A small drawing taped beside the kitchen door. A little girl with wide eyes holding a stuffed bear. Behind her stood a shadowy figure, arms stretched out, offering light. It was Jane's work. He was sure of it. "She was here 2 nights ago," a staff member said. "Dropped that off and disappeared." Carrington handed the woman a note and his business card. "If you see her again, give her this, please." The next day, Jane returned. She didn't go to the sidewalk. She didn't draw. She came straight to the shelter, wearing the coat he left for her. The note still folded in the pocket. She unfolded the new note from her hand. It read, "Meet me at the library, no tricks. I have something for you, not to take, but to give." She thought about ignoring it, but something inside her whispered, "Go." The library was quiet. Carrington sat alone at a corner table. No bodyguards, no driver, just a thick folder beside him, and a warm drink untouched. Jane walked in slowly, her hood up. She stood across from him, silent. He looked up and smiled gently. "I just wanted to thank you." She narrowed her eyes. "For what?" "For reminding me what love looks like." She didn't sit. He opened the folder and slid it across the table. Inside were papers, a scholarship to the best art school in the city, a housing plan, a monthly art supply allowance. No strings, no press, no public story. "I want to invest in you, Jane, not because I pity you, but because you have something the world needs to see." She stared at the folder, then slowly closed it. "People always want something," she whispered, "even if they don't say it out loud." "What do you think I want?" he asked softly. She looked up, her voice sharp. "Maybe to feel better. Maybe to fix a wound with a prettier picture. But I'm not a charity case. I'm not your daughter." Silence fell between them. Then she turned and walked away, leaving the folder behind. Carrington didn't follow, but he didn't throw the folder away either. He knew this wasn't the end, because something in her eyes said, "I don't trust you yet, but I'm listening." The door to the library swung shut behind her. Mr. Carrington sat frozen at the table, his hands still resting on the closed folder. He had offered everything he thought she needed, but she walked away anyway, and somehow he respected that. But then he noticed something. Under the chair where Jane had been standing was a sketchbook. It was old and soft around the edges, held together by a piece of string. The cover had smudges of blue, yellow, and red. He reached down and picked it up slowly, like it was made of glass. He hesitated. This felt private, like a piece of her soul. But he opened it anyway, and as he flipped through the pages, he forgot how to breathe. There were portraits, so many. People sleeping on benches, children looking out of train windows, a girl kneeling under a bridge, holding a tiny chalk drawing in her lap. Each page held pain and beauty and honesty. Then near the middle, he found something that stopped his heart. A portrait of himself. Not the businessman, not the billionaire, but him, sitting alone in the back of the SUV, hands folded, face tired, drawn through the reflection of the car window like someone had watched him, watching her, and below it in small handwriting were 3 words. He looks lost. Carrington blinked hard. He closed the sketchbook and held it to his chest. She had seen him. Not just his car, not his suit, not his wealth, him. He stood up slowly, the folder still on the table, the sketchbook now in his hand. The librarian watched from across the room and asked gently, "Did she leave something behind?" You gave it beauty anyway. Because you made people feel something again, even me." Tears filled her eyes. She looked away, ashamed. "I didn't do it for them." "I know," he said. "That's what makes it real." She stood in the center of the room, soaked hoodie dripping on the floor, surrounded by pieces of her soul on the walls. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel invisible. They sat in silence for a while, just the two of them, in the middle of the gallery. Jane's drawings surrounded them like memories come to life. Mr. Carrington handed her a tissue. She wiped her face quickly, like she didn't want him to see the tears. Then he spoke softly. "I have to ask you something." She looked up, guarded. "That first drawing, the one of the girl, with the soft smile, the wind in her hair. Why did you draw her?" Jane went still. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I don't know." He waited. She finally spoke again, slower now. "She started showing up in my dreams, always standing in the same place, same face, like she wanted to say something but never did." Mr. Carrington swallowed hard. His hands trembled slightly in his lap. "Did she say her name?" "No," Jane replied. "But I felt like I knew her, like she'd been hurt, or maybe like you had been." The room was quiet again. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a photo, worn around the edges. He handed it to her. Jane looked down. It was the same girl, same soft smile, same wind in her hair. "Her name was Lila," he said. "She was my daughter." Jane's eyes widened. "She died 3 years ago. No one could ever draw her face right, not even me, until I saw you." Jane gripped the photo, her fingers shaking. "I don't know how I drew her," she said, her voice cracking. "I just felt like she wanted you to smile again." Carrington leaned forward, eyes glassy. "And somehow through you, she did." In that moment, something passed between them. Not words, not even grief, but understanding, connection. Like 2 broken hearts had recognized each other through the cracks. Jane looked at him, her voice small. "Do you think she sent me?" He smiled. "Maybe we both needed a reason to come back to life." 1 year later, the city was buzzing with excitement. Reporters lined the sidewalk. Photographers clicked their cameras. A crowd had gathered outside a brand-new art center, modern, bright and full of hope. Above the doors, in bold silver letters, were 5 simple words: "The Jane Foundation for Street Artists." But Jane wasn't watching the cameras. She stood just inside the glass doors, dressed in a soft white blouse and clean jeans. Her hair was tied neatly. A sketchbook was tucked under her arm. Not the old one, a new one, blank, waiting. Beside her stood Mr. Carrington, smiling quietly, hands in his pockets. He didn't need to speak. The world already knew. This wasn't a billionaire's charity. It was Jane's legacy. The center was filled with easels and paint, light and laughter. Inside were kids just like she used to be, unseen, unheard, now holding brushes instead of broken dreams. One little girl ran up to Jane with paint on her nose and asked, "Is it true you used to sleep on the street?" Jane knelt down and smiled. "It's true, but dreams can live anywhere, even on a sidewalk." The girl hugged her tight. Outside, someone asked Carrington why he named the building after her. He simply said, "Because I found her in the shadows, and she gave the world light." Later that day, when the crowd had cleared and the sun began to set, Jane stood alone in front of the building. She looked up at her name, Jane, not invisible, not forgotten. She closed her eyes and for just a moment she imagined a breeze, soft and sweet, and heard a whisper that wasn't quite real. "Thank you." Maybe it was her imagination. Maybe it was Lila. Either way, she smiled, because this was only the beginning.